The blue light of the quantum receiver pulsed gently in the dimly lit monitoring station. Commander Olivia Summers leaned forward in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. She had been on duty for nearly 14 hours, watching endless streams of cosmic background noise. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Horizon floated silently at the edge of the solar system, humanity's farthest outpost, and their best hope for detecting signals from beyond. Another quiet shift, Olivia muttered to herself, reaching for her coffee mug. The bitter liquid had gone cold hours ago, but she drank it anyway. The sudden blaring of an alarm made her jolt upright, spilling the remains of her coffee across her uniform. The quantum receiver's screen flashed red, indicating an incoming transmission on frequencies they had never detected before. System error? She wondered aloud, her fingers flying across the control panel as she ran diagnostics. But the equipment was functioning perfectly. This was real. She pressed the station-wide communication button. Dr. Collins to the monitoring deck immediately. This is not a drill. Dr. Nathan Collins arrived 3 minutes later, his gray hair disheveled and his eyes wide with concern. What happened? Are we under attack? Olivia shook her head and pointed to the screen. We're receiving a transmission from Andromeda. Nathan froze, his mouth slightly open in shock. That's impossible. Andromeda is over 2 million light-years away. Our equipment isn't designed to... I know, Olivia interrupted. But it's happening. And there's more. She tapped a command into the console, bringing up a translation attempt. The computer says this isn't random noise. It contains patterns, mathematical sequences, and what appears to be language. The two stood in silence as the computer processed the signal. Finally, text appeared on the screen. We perish. Our mistakes. Do not repeat. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Nathan's hands trembled as he sat down. This changes everything. If this is genuine, it's proof not only of intelligent alien life, but of advanced civilizations capable of sending messages across intergalactic space. But why us? Why Earth? Olivia asked, studying the message again. And why now? That's the most disturbing part, Nathan said quietly. Given the distance, this message was sent millions of years ago. Whoever sent it, they're probably long gone. Over the next 24 hours, Olivia and Nathan worked without rest, verifying the signal and running every possible test they could think of. They found embedded within the message complex mathematical formulas that could only have been created by an intelligent, technologically advanced species. When they were absolutely certain, Olivia sent an encrypted message to Earth's Global Space Council. Within hours, an emergency meeting was called. Olivia and Nathan presented their findings via secure quantum link. The council chamber on Earth was filled with the most powerful and influential leaders of humanity. Admiral Paul Whitaker of the Earth Defense Fleet sat with a deep frown, his decorated uniform gleaming under the bright lights. Beside him was Dr. Lisa Bennett, the world's leading xenolinguist, frantically taking notes as Olivia explained their discovery. You're certain this isn't some kind of natural phenomenon? Asked Admiral Whitaker, his voice gruff with skepticism. Absolutely certain, Nathan replied. The message contains perfect prime number sequences, followed by mathematical constants that match our own understanding of physics. Then comes the linguistic component, which our AI translators have decoded with 87% confidence. Dr. Bennett adjusted her glasses. The linguistic structure suggests a species with thought patterns somewhat similar to our own, which is fascinating in itself. But I'm more interested in why they chose to send this specific message. It sounds like a warning. The room fell silent. As everyone contemplated the implications, we should keep this classified, suggested one council member. If this gets out, there could be panic. The public has a right to know, argued another. This is the most significant discovery in human history. The debate grew heated, with voices rising and tempers flaring. It was only when Captain Daniel Wright, a decorated officer from the Exploration Division, stood up that silence returned to the room. With respect, he said calmly, I think we're missing something important here. What if this message isn't just a warning from the past, What if it's a plea for help in the present? Admiral Whitaker scoffed. That's impossible. The message traveled over 2 million light years. Whoever sent it is long dead. Perhaps, Daniel conceded. Or perhaps they found a way to survive. The message specifically says protect those who cannot protect themselves. What if there are survivors out there, waiting for someone to answer their call? The possibility hung in the air, changing the mood in the room from academic interest to something more urgent. In the days that followed, additional fragments of the message were decoded. Each new piece revealed more about the mysterious Andromedan civilization and the apparent catastrophe they had faced. The message spoke of great mistakes, of watching from afar, of choosing non-intervention until it was too late. The final decoded fragment was the most chilling. In your galaxy, we have observed your species, humans. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is our final wisdom, our final plea. Carry it forward when we are gone. 1 month after the initial discovery, the Global Space Council made 2 historic decisions. First, they would share the truth with humanity, and second, they would answer the call. Project Starlight was born, humanity's most ambitious venture into deep space. Using experimental fold space technology, they would build a ship capable of reaching Andromeda not in millions of years, but in just 15. The mission: investigate the source of the transmission and determine if any remnants of the Andromedan civilization remained. As the project began, Olivia Summers stood alone in her quarters aboard the Horizon station. Through her viewport, she could see the distant smudge of light that was the Andromeda galaxy. Something terrible had happened there long ago, something that had prompted a dying civilization to reach across the void with a final message to strangers they would never meet. "We heard you," she whispered to the distant galaxy. "And we're coming." She didn't know then that the message was only the beginning, that humanity was about to step onto a stage far larger and more dangerous than anyone could imagine. A stage where the very fate of galaxies would hinge on humanity's defining trait, their willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. The construction of the Starlight took 1 full year. Never before had humanity built a vessel designed to travel beyond their own galaxy. The ship stood in Earth's orbital shipyard, its sleek hull reflecting the distant sun. At nearly a mile long, it represented the peak of human engineering and the hopes of an entire planet. Captain Alexandra Morgan walked through the still empty corridors of the ship that would be her home for the next 15 years. At 42, she was considered young for such a mission, but her 20 years of exploration in the outer solar system had made her the clear choice to lead. She paused at a viewport, looking out at the blue sphere of Earth below. Would she ever see it again? The mission parameters were clear: 15 years in fold space to reach Andromeda, up to 5 years of exploration, and then 15 years for the return journey. If all went well, she would be in her 70s when she returned home. Having second thoughts, Captain, a voice asked from behind her. Alexandra turned to see Ryan Cooper, the chief engineer responsible for the experimental fold space drive that would make their journey possible. At 35, he was already legendary in scientific circles for his groundbreaking work on faster-than-light travel. "Not second thoughts," she replied. "Just making peace with what we're leaving behind." Ryan nodded in understanding. "We all are. But think about what's ahead of us. We'll be the first humans to step foot in another galaxy. If we survive the journey," Alexandra said. "We will," Ryan answered with confidence. "The drive tests were perfect, and besides, someone has to answer that message." The message from Andromeda had become famous worldwide in the months since its discovery. Children recited it in schools. Politicians quoted it in speeches. The words had sparked something in humanity's collective consciousness, a reminder of their better nature, their capacity for protection and sacrifice. The following day, the rest of the crew arrived. Science Officer Elizabeth Grant stepped aboard with an excited smile. At 38, she was the world's leading xenobiologist, though until now her work had been purely theoretical. "Captain Morgan," she said, saluting. I can't thank you enough for selecting me. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Your expertise will be essential, Dr. Grant, Alexandra replied, especially if we find any surviving members of the civilization that sent the message. Security Director Marcus Johnson arrived next. The former Special Forces commander moved with quiet confidence, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings. Alexandra had chosen him not just for his combat skills but for his calm judgment under pressure. Captain, he said with a nod. I've reviewed the security protocols. My team will be ready. The final core crew member was communications specialist Kevin Lee. At just 29, he was the youngest of the command team, but his work in deciphering the additional fragments of the Andromedan message had made him irreplaceable. The day is finally here, Kevin said, his excitement barely contained. I've spent the last year dreaming about this mission. By evening, all 100 crew members had boarded. Engineers, scientists, medical staff, security personnel, each chosen from thousands of volunteers worldwide. They would travel in cryostasis for most of the journey, with the ship's AI monitoring their vital signs. Before the final launch preparations, Alexandra called the core team to the bridge for a private meeting. Tomorrow we make history, she said, looking at each of them. But I want to be clear about what we might face. We're traveling to the source of a message sent millions of years ago. We don't know what we'll find, if anything. The civilization that sent it may be completely gone. Marcus leaned forward. Or they might be hostile. The message could be a trap. I don't believe that, Kevin said firmly. I've studied every pattern in that transmission. It wasn't meant to lure us. It was a genuine warning, a plea. Elizabeth nodded in agreement. The linguistic structures suggest sincerity, but Captain is right. We should be prepared for anything. That's why I've gathered you here, Alexandra said. Each of you represents the best of humanity in your field. Whatever we find in Andromeda, I need to know I can count on you. Ryan raised his water glass. To the mission, the others joined the toast, a moment of unity before the greatest journey ever undertaken by humans. The launch the next morning was watched by billions around the world. The Starlight rose from Earth orbit smoothly, its conventional engines carrying it beyond the moon's orbit. There, in the emptiness of space, Ryan prepared the Fold space drive for its first real test. On the bridge, Alexandra gave the final command. Engage Fold space. Ryan's fingers moved across his console. Fold space drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The space around the ship seemed to bend and twist. Stars stretched into lines of light, and then everything outside the viewports became an indescribable blur. The ship shuddered but held together as it entered the space between normal dimensions, the shortcut through the universe that would allow them to cross millions of light years in just 15 years. Once the ship stabilized, the crew began their preparations for long-term cryostasis. The computer would wake them briefly every year for system checks and to ensure their bodies remained healthy. The night before entering cryostasis, Alexandra sat alone in her quarters. On her personal tablet was the complete translated message from Andromeda, which she had read countless times. We perish beneath the shadow of those we once trusted. Our mistakes cannot be undone. Do not repeat our path of non-intervention. In your galaxy, we have observed your species. Humans, protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is our final wisdom, our final plea. Carry it forward when we are gone. What had happened to the beings who sent this? What force could destroy an entire civilization advanced enough to send messages across intergalactic space? And most troubling of all, why had they been watching humanity? How had they known about humans' capacity for protection and sacrifice? As the cryostasis countdown began, Alexandra stored these questions away. For now, they were on their way. The Starlight sailed through Fold space, carrying 100 dreaming humans toward a mystery millions of years in the making. None of them could have guessed that the ship's AI would wake them early, not in Andromeda, but in the vast emptiness between galaxies, where nothing should exist but where something waited for them, ancient beyond imagining. The cryostasis pods hissed open after 13 years of silent travel through fold space. Captain Alexandra Morgan woke first, her body stiff and her mind foggy. The emergency lights bathed the awakening chamber in red. This was not a scheduled awakening. "Status report," she called out, her voice hoarse from disuse. The ship's AI responded immediately. "Captain, the ship has detected an anomaly and initiated emergency awakening protocols." Alexandra pulled herself from her pod, muscles protesting after the long sleep. "What kind of anomaly?" "Unknown structure detected in intergalactic space. Current location, 1.7 million light-years from Earth, approximately 800,000 light-years from Andromeda." That wasn't right. They should still be in fold space, not back in normal space. And nothing should exist in the vast emptiness between galaxies. The rest of the core crew awakened shortly after. Ryan Cooper stumbled from his pod, checking ship systems on his portable device before he was fully upright. "The fold space drive disengaged automatically," he reported, brow furrowed in confusion. "Something pulled us out." Security Director Marcus Johnson was already pulling on his uniform. "Defensive systems?" "All operational," the AI confirmed. Science Officer Elizabeth Grant and Communications Specialist Kevin Lee joined them on the bridge. The main viewport showed only darkness at first, but as the ship's external lights activated, they gasped collectively. Before them floated a massive structure unlike anything humans had created. It was roughly spherical, but with countless geometric protrusions and indentations along its surface. Despite appearing ancient, soft blue light pulsed across its surface in regular patterns. "That's impossible," Ryan muttered, checking the readings. "Nothing should be out here. We're in the void between galaxies." Elizabeth stared at the structure in wonder. "It's artificial, clearly constructed by an advanced civilization." "How big is it?" Alexandra asked. "Approximately 3 kilometers in diameter," the AI replied. Marcus tensed. "It could be a weapon, or a beacon," Kevin suggested. "The patterns of light. They remind me of the mathematical sequences in the Andromedan message." Alexandra made her decision. "Take us closer, but maintain defensive readiness. Alert the rest of the crew to prepare for possible emergency situations." As the starlight approached the structure, the blue lights pulsed faster. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the structure and engulfed the ship. Marcus reached for his sidearm, but Ryan called out, "Wait! It's not a weapon, it's a scan." The beam disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, without warning, a figure materialized on the bridge. The crew jumped back in shock. Before them stood what appeared to be a holographic projection of a humanoid figure. It was tall and slender with features that seemed almost human, yet clearly alien. Its skin had a faint blue tint and its eyes contained what looked like swirling galaxies. "You have answered," the figure said in perfect English, its voice melodic and clear. "After 53 million years, someone finally answered." Kevin stepped forward cautiously. You understand our language?" The figure nodded. "I have been analyzing your ship's databases since you entered this region. I am Serena, an artificial intelligence created by the librarians, the last survivors of the Andromedan civilization you call Andromeda." Alexandra approached the hologram. "We received your message, the warning." "Not my message," Serena corrected. "The final message of my creators. This structure is an intergalactic waypoint, designed to intercept any species responding to their call." Elizabeth had been scanning the hologram with her scientific instruments. "This projection technology is far beyond our capabilities." "As it should be," Serena replied. "My creators were an ancient civilization when your species was still learning to use simple tools. They watched your development from afar for millions of years." "Why?" Alexandra asked. "Why watch us?" "Because they saw something in humans that they had lost in themselves, a willingness to fight for others even at great cost." Serena's expression grew solemn. "It is time you learned the truth about what happened to the librarians. The hologram waved a hand, and the bridge seemed to transform around them. They found themselves standing in what appeared to be a vast city of crystal and light, populated by beings similar to Serena, but clearly physical rather than holographic. "This is a memory recording," Serena explained. "The librarians were not destroyed by natural disaster or their own technology as you might have assumed. They were systematically exterminated by another species." The scene changed to show massive dark ships descending on the Crystal City, beams of energy turning the beautiful structures to dust. They called themselves the Voidborn, beings of immense power who viewed the evolution of compassionate intelligence as a cosmic mistake. According to their philosophy, only the strong deserve to survive. Any species that protects the weak pollutes the natural order. Marcus watched the destruction with a soldier's eye. These weapons, the level of technology, far beyond even what the librarians possessed, Serena confirmed. The librarians were peaceful scholars and scientists. They observed countless species across many galaxies, but adhered to a principle of non-interference. The scene shifted again, showing what appeared to be a council chamber, where the librarians argued among themselves. When the Voidborn began targeting vulnerable civilizations, the librarians debated intervention. Many wanted to warn other species, to help them prepare defenses, but the majority chose to remain hidden, to observe rather than act, until it was too late. Serena's voice filled with what sounded like genuine emotion. By the time they decided to fight back, most of their civilization had already fallen. In their final days, they sent thousands of messages across the cosmos and constructed this waypoint. They hoped that someday, someone would answer. The holographic scenes faded, returning them to the bridge of the starlight. The crew stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. Elizabeth was the first to speak. "These Voidborn, are they still out there?" Serena's holographic face showed something like sorrow. "Yes, and they are coming to your galaxy next." Alexandra stepped forward. "How long do we have?" "By my calculations, they will reach the outer regions of your galaxy within 50 of your years." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "We need to get back to Earth. We need to warn everyone." "There is more," Serena said. "Not all of the librarians perished. A small group of survivors, along with refugees from other targeted species, established a hidden colony at the edge of Andromeda. They have been preparing, gathering technology and knowledge. They sent me to wait for whoever answered their message." Alexandra understood immediately. "You want us to go there?" "Yes. The survivors have knowledge and technology that could help your species prepare. And they need something only humans seem to possess in abundance, the will to stand and fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." The crew looked to Alexandra. As captain, the decision was hers. Return to Earth with their warning, or continue deeper into the unknown. She thought of the message that had brought them here. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Set course for the colony, she ordered. We have a lot to learn. The journey to the edge of Andromeda took 3 weeks in normal space. The starlight followed Serena's guidance, avoiding regions where Voidborn scouts might patrol. Captain Alexandra Morgan spent much of that time studying the information Serena provided about the librarians and their enemies. "We're approaching the coordinates," Ryan announced from his station. "But I'm not detecting any signs of a colony." Serena's hologram appeared beside him. "The colony is hidden inside an unstable nebula. The radiation masks life signs and technology. Only ships with the correct signal codes can find the safe path through." The view screen showed a swirling cloud of purple and blue gases ahead. It looked beautiful but deadly. Radiation warnings flashed across the ship's control panels. "Our shields won't hold for long in that," Ryan warned. "They don't need to," Serena replied. "I am transmitting the approach codes now." The nebula seemed to shift before their eyes. A narrow path opened up like a tunnel through the swirling gases. Alexandra ordered the helmsman to follow it, and the starlight moved carefully into the nebula. After 10 minutes of tense navigation, they emerged into a large, clear pocket within the nebula. Inside this protected space floated what looked like a small city built on and around a collection of asteroids. Ships of various designs moved between the structures. The colony, Serena announced with pride in her voice. Elizabeth gasped. Those ships, they're all different designs, different technologies. Refugees from dozens of worlds destroyed by the Voidborn, Serena explained. The librarians sheltered as many as they could in their final days. A voice came over the communication system, speaking in a language none of them recognized. Serena responded in the same language and then translated for the humans. They're granting us permission to dock. They're surprised to see us. They had almost given up hope that anyone would answer their message. The Starlight docked at one of the larger asteroids. Alexandra selected a small team to make first contact. Herself, Elizabeth, Kevin, and Marcus for security. Ryan would remain aboard to monitor the ship. As they prepared to disembark, Marcus checked his weapon. I don't like going in blind, Captain. Noted, Alexandra replied. But we need to show trust if we want to build an alliance. They stepped through the airlock and were met by a group of beings unlike any they had imagined. At the front stood a tall, slender figure similar to Serena's hologram but clearly physical, a living librarian. Behind this leader were beings of various shapes and sizes, some humanoid, others completely alien in form. The librarian stepped forward and spoke, with Serena translating. I am Zara, one of the last living librarians. For 53 million years we have waited for an answer to our call. You are the first to come. Alexandra introduced herself and her crew. We received your message and came to learn the truth. Zara studied them with eyes that contained swirling galaxies. You are younger than we expected. Your species has barely begun its journey among the stars. But we're quick learners, Alexandra replied. Zara led them through the colony. Everywhere they looked, different species worked together, building, teaching, learning. Children of various species played together in protected areas. How many survivors are there? Elizabeth asked. Nearly 30,000 from over 40 different worlds, Zara answered. The last of their kind in most cases. All that remains of once great civilizations. They entered a large chamber carved from the asteroid itself. Along the walls were images showing beautiful worlds, magnificent cities, and advanced technologies, all now lost. This is our Hall of Remembrance, Zara explained. We preserve what we can of the cultures the Voidborn destroyed. Kevin studied the images with sadness. All this knowledge, these achievements, gone. Not gone, Zara corrected. Changed, hidden, waiting. She gestured around her. Every refugee here carries the seeds of their civilization. Together, we have built something new. Alexandra asked the question that had been bothering her since meeting Serena. Why did you watch humans specifically? Out of all the species in our galaxy, why send your message to us? Zara led them to another chamber where screens showed images of Earth's history. To Alexandra's surprise, they were not images of humanity's greatest achievements, but of their struggles, wars, disasters, conflicts. She pointed to an image of a soldier carrying a child from a burning building. Another showed protesters standing against armed forces. A third displayed rescue workers pulling survivors from earthquake rubble. Other species advance technologically, build great empires, create wonderful art, Zara said. But humans display a trait that is rare in the universe. You consistently risk yourselves to protect others, even when there is no benefit to you. Marcus frowned. You're talking about basic human decency. Which is not basic at all, Zara replied. Most intelligent species evolve to protect their own kind, their own offspring. Few extend that protection to strangers, to other species, to those who cannot repay the favor. She moved to another screen showing the Voidborn, massive ships, crewed by beings encased in dark armor. The Voidborn believe protection of the weak creates weakness. They believe only the strong should survive, that compassion is an evolutionary mistake. Zara's voice grew softer. My people once believed non-interference was the highest wisdom. We watched countless civilizations fall, telling ourselves it was not our place to help. Alexandra understood. And by the time you decided to act, it was too late, Zara finished. Our message to your world was our attempt to correct our mistake, to warn at least one species not to repeat our path. Elizabeth had been studying the technology in the room. Your civilization was clearly more advanced than ours. How could you lose to the Voidborn? Technology is not everything, Zara answered. The Voidborn have one advantage we never had. They are willing to destroy. We spent our existence learning, preserving, watching. When the time came to fight, we hesitated. She turned to face Alexandra directly. The Voidborn fear humans most of all. We have observed your history. Despite your conflicts, your defining trait makes you unpredictable and dangerous to their ordered vision. Marcus questioned whether humanity could possibly stand against beings who had destroyed entire galaxies. Our weapons, our ships, they're nothing compared to what we've seen here. Zara's answer was simple. Not alone. But you won't be alone. She revealed that the refugees had been building a coalition and developing technology to fight back. They had been gathering resources, training, preparing, but they needed a species with humanity's unique combination of compassion and determination to lead them. We have the knowledge, Zara said. You have the will. Alexandra faced an impossible decision: return home with a warning that would take years to deliver, or commit humanity to a war they never asked for, against an enemy they never knew existed. Her answer came when a small child, clearly the last of her species, approached and took her hand. The child had 6 fingers and purple skin, but her eyes held the same trust Alexandra had seen in human children. In that moment, Alexandra understood the true meaning of the Andromedan message. We'll help you, she said to Zara, and together we'll stop the Voidborn. 5 years passed in the colony. The Starlight crew integrated with the refugees, learning their technologies and teaching human strategies and perspectives in return. Under Alexandra's leadership, they formed a combined fleet using ships from various species, each modified with the best technologies from all cultures. Ryan Cooper worked with engineers from 7 different species to develop weapons capable of damaging Voidborn ships. Elizabeth Grant helped coordinate medical knowledge between species. Kevin Lee created a universal translation system that allowed all refugees to communicate freely. Marcus Johnson trained mixed-species security teams, combining combat techniques from across the galaxies. Alexandra stood on the observation deck of the newly completed flagship, Unity, watching as the combined fleet prepared for its journey to Earth. Over 200 ships of various designs and sizes, all upgraded with hybrid technology. It wasn't enough to defeat the entire Voidborn armada, but it might be enough to convince Earth to join the fight. Zara joined her at the viewport. The ancient librarian had become a trusted friend and advisor over the years. Are you ready to return home? Zara asked. Alexandra nodded, though I'm not sure it will feel like home anymore. You have changed, Zara agreed. As have we all. The changes were visible throughout the colony. Species that had once been enemies now worked side by side. Technologies that had developed independently across millions of light years were now combined in ways no single civilization would have imagined. Do you think Earth will join us? Zara asked quietly. Alexandra watched as the last of the refugee families boarded the transport ships. Not all were warriors. Many were scholars, children, the last members of their species. They were bringing their entire civilization with them, trusting in humanity's protection. They will, Alexandra said with confidence. Once they understand what's at stake. The journey back to Earth took 12 weeks using the improved fold space drive that Ryan and his team had developed. The fleet emerged near Jupiter, causing immediate panic among Earth's defense systems. Multiple unknown vessels detected, called out the operator at Earth Defense Command. Over 200 ships just appeared near Jupiter. Admiral Paul Whitaker, now in his 60s, rushed to the command center. Is it them? The Voidborn? No, sir, the operator replied with confusion. We're receiving a transmission. It's the Starlight. Captain Morgan is requesting permission to approach Earth with an allied fleet. The news spread across the planet. The Starlight, missing for almost 20 years, had returned with a fleet of alien ships. Global leaders gathered in the Space Council chamber as Alexandra's transmission was broadcast worldwide. The image that appeared on screens around the world showed a woman in a uniform that combined elements of Earth design with clearly alien symbols. Though Alexandra looked only a few years older than when she left, thanks to the extended time in cryostasis, her eyes held wisdom beyond her years. "People of Earth," she began. "5 years ago by our time, 20 years by yours, we discovered the truth behind the Andromedan message. Their civilization fell because they waited too long to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. We have chosen differently." She introduced the council to representatives from 17 surviving species, each with technologies and knowledge to share. Together they had already fought and won 3 battles against void-born scout forces. "The war is coming," Alexandra explained. "But this time, the forces of compassion will not stand divided." In the days that followed, ships from the refugee fleet landed at designated locations around Earth. Scientists, engineers, and diplomats from different species met with their human counterparts. Knowledge flowed freely, and humanity quickly grasped the scale of both the threat and the opportunity before them. The Global Space Council voted unanimously to join the alliance, which had taken the name the Guardians, chosen to honor both their mission and the final wisdom of the Andromedan civilization. Earth became the center of the most diverse coalition of species the universe had ever known. Other worlds in the Milky Way were contacted and joined as well, creating a network of allied planets prepared to stand against the coming storm. Alexandra and Zara stood together 3 years later on the bridge of the new command ship, New Horizon. Named after the station that had first detected the Andromedan message, it combined technologies from 23 different civilizations. The ship was commanded by Admiral Olivia Summers, the woman who had first received the Andromedan message decades earlier. "Our long-range scouts have detected them," Olivia said, displaying the images on the main screen. "The first major void-born fleet has entered the outer regions of the Milky Way." The images showed massive black ships moving in perfect formation. Each was larger than the largest human vessel ever built. Even with their combined technologies, this would be a difficult fight. Alexandra felt a moment of doubt. "There are so many. And yet they will fail," Zara said with unusual certainty. "How can you be so sure?" Alexandra asked. "Because the Void-born believe protection of the weak creates weakness," Zara explained. "But look around you." Throughout the ship, humans worked alongside beings from dozens of worlds. Many were refugees who had lost everything to the Void-born. But they stood tall now, trained and ready. "Protection created strength," Zara continued. "By choosing to defend those who could not defend themselves, humanity united us, something the Void-born can never understand." Admiral Summers called the fleet to battle stations. As ships from 100 worlds moved into formation, she broadcast a message to every vessel. "Today we honor the final message of a dying galaxy. We are humanity. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we are not alone anymore." The message spread across thousands of vessels, in hundreds of languages, uniting species that had evolved on planets millions of light-years apart. In that moment, the dream that the Andromedans had died for finally became reality. As the fleet moved forward to meet the Void-born, Alexandra realized that the true strength of the universe wasn't in advanced weapons or fold space drives. It was in the simple truth that the Andromedans had recognized in humanity, that protection of others wasn't weakness, but the greatest strength the universe had ever known. The battle would be difficult. Some would not survive. But for the first time since the Void-born began their crusade across the galaxies, they would face an enemy united not by fear or force, but by the very compassion they sought to extinguish. And Alexandra knew, watching the ships move forward together, that compassion would win.